This is Jerod Lakefield, a novel by Don Fensler, Part 34, Phase 2, Part 5, Saving the Marriage. Needless to say, I was in a panic right now. Jennifer was in a panic too, and I was in a panic because she was in a panic. In short, life was shit. So I decided to call Jerod, but there was no answer. Somehow this didn't surprise me. I called again and again all day and there was no answer. I had no idea what was going on. My wife was very upset. She had trusted Jerod. She had trusted me. I felt for the first time in my life that my marriage and my fucking life itself was going over the edge of Mount St. Helens. I'm the fucking type who takes things too serious, worries like an old Aunt Agnes with warts, but still, things had fucking changed for the worst, in my opinion. He got in over his head, said Jennifer, who could be the calmest, most negative person on earth when she had put her mind to it. But it's not your fault. You should have known that a guy from St. Cloud State is not going to be able to make it in the NBA. I see it in his eyes, a look of fear. I see it in Jerod's eyes, that fear. I have never seen that before, and never thought I would ever see it in Jerod Lakefield. But he has surprised us before, I said, scrambling like a man who had been tossed overboard from a Titanic lifeboat. In fact, he has fucking knocked our socks off in amazement at times, honey. I think everything is going to be okay. And in a way, I believe this to be true. In a way, I felt like Donald Trump on Judgment Day. At this precise moment, I regretted bringing Jennifer into this. Even with my doubts, I knew I was involved in something big, and that big had nothing to do with basketball. Jennifer had not been with me out on the highway when he pulled those kids from the burning car. I told her, and she kind of believed me, but there had been some doubt, and so she wasn't really a part of it the way I was, especially since his trip to San Diego had become so fucked up, and she had to be doubting a lot of what I told her. Not that I was a liar, but the screws in my brain had been jarred loose and were rolling around on the floor. And maybe all that was big had already happened, and I was the only one who knew it. Maybe there was nothing else to come. I had seen great things, big things from Jerod Lakefield, but maybe the great things had come to an end. How could I have dragged my wife, my beloved Jennifer, into all this? She hated my guts at this moment. And to be honest, I hated my own guts. Jennifer hated my guts, but she still had to play the understanding wife. That could be a big fucking tedious drag, I knew, since I knew she didn't really hate my guts. We had beaten Iowa and almost beaten Duke, the fucking smallest fucking college on earth, playing head-to-head with D1 schools. Jerod Lakefield was angelic and otherworldly in those games. Jerod had calmed fucking dicey situations in a street mugging in Minnesota with the meth head with a gun, and eaten a lunch and sent home with a wedgie the rude racist redneck customer in Great Plains, Kansas. And then there was the highway incident. He had literally reached into pure fire and pulled out life. Those children. Was there more? Was there more? As much as he had given, right now I felt I needed more from him. I needed so much more from a man who had just scored a single point in his NBA career. 1 point in fucking 10 games. Right now, my total focus had to be my wife, Jennifer, who I loved and didn't want to hurt or alienate. Her and I had to stick together, even if it meant hurting and alienating Jerod Lakefield. Jerod calls. There was a call. The phone rang and I picked it up, and it was Jerod Lakefield. He wanted to talk. He wanted to talk right away, but his voice was not urgent. Jerod Lakefield never sounded urgent. Jerod could be in the middle of a tornado-enriched thunderstorm in the middle of a fucking Iranian nuclear attack, and he would never sound urgent. He wanted to meet at Starbucks off Sunnyside Boulevard. Okay, I said. Okay, of course I said okay. I saw Jerod inside the shop. I saw him through the window sitting at a booth. He did not look like a superstar. He just looked like a man drinking coffee, a guy taking a few minutes off from his job at the fucking shoe store up the street. There was a man with him, a young man, and sitting across from him. Hi, Jerod, I said. How's everything going? Jerod Lakefield looked up suddenly as if he was surprised and startled. I almost apologized. Jerod's eyes burned into mine and burned a hole through the back of my head. Thank you for coming, Michon, Jerod said. He gestured to the man sitting next to him. I want you to meet Timothy Mannion. He is a man I met at one of the Clappers practices. I shook hands with Tim Mannion. He smiled at me, then looked at Jerod like he expected Jerod to say more. Jerod didn't say anything more. Tim then said, "This is on me. What do you want to drink?" I pretended to refuse and then said to get me a latte. Tim stood up and went over to the counter to order it. I know you and Jennifer are worried, said Jerod. I started to speak in protest, but Jerod Lakefield raised his hand to silence me. I know I haven't been exactly dazzling recently on the basketball court, but it has nothing to do with basketball. It has something to do with something outside of basketball, something very big. I can play with these guys, Michon. Of course you can, Jerod, I said, but it probably sounded phony. What is the big thing you are talking about, I asked. Is there something I can help you with? No, it's something I have to take care of myself. I need to do this on my own, Jerod continued. You and Jennifer have absolutely nothing to worry about. The money will be there. You and her will be taken care of. I don't worry about money, Jerod, I said, lying again. I worry about you. It's just I don't understand why I'm here. I said this suddenly and rapidly. My own emotion and candor even surprised me. Jerod Lakefield looked at me for a long time and then said, "You are here to watch and to witness and to write down what you see. I need you to write down everything you see and feel from here on out." Write? What am I supposed to write? Jerod, I'm no writer, I said. I'm a basketball coach, and barely that. What am I supposed to watch? Don't worry about that, Jerod Lakefield said. You'll know what to watch, and then later you'll know what to write. So I'm supposed to be your biographer? I asked, laughing a little bit. You'll know what to write, Jerod said again. This was getting scary. Tim Mannion came back with my coffee, and I thanked him. He sat down and said, "Did Jerod tell you?" I didn't know how much I could say to Tim, so I shrugged my shoulders like I didn't know what he was asking. "Jerod didn't tell you," said Tim, "so I will. I used to be in a wheelchair. I was sitting at the edge of the court at one of the Clapper practices. Jerod was also watching the practice, and somehow or other, he ended up on the court with one of the Clapper players named Trombley, or something like that. He is no longer on the team. Trombley doesn't matter in this," he said. Tim swept his hand across the table like he was erasing Willie Trombley from existence. Anyway, somehow Jerod Lakefield, or Trombley, ended up in a one-on-one game with Jerod. Tim Mannion continued. Jerod, to everyone's amazement, completely humiliates this Trombley fellow. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. After it was over, with Trombley cussing up a storm and those of us watching shaking our heads at what Jerod Lakefield could do on a court, Jerod walked off the court and gave me a high five as I sat in my wheelchair. The second his hand touched me, it was like a powerful electric surge went through my entire body. A strong, vibrating electric surge. I felt excruciating pain one second, and the next, the greatest peace and joy I've ever felt in my life. I felt my legs move, the first time they had moved since the car accident 12 years ago, and I started to weep uncontrollably. Jerod walked away and then stood up and walked home. The people around me looked at me like I was nuts. This guy sobbing uncontrollably and bringing a wheelchair he didn't even need.